Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this January 8th, 2020 meeting of the North Carolina State Board of Education. I'm Eric Davis, Chair of the Board, and I call this meeting to order. This time, I'd like to wish everyone a Happy New Year and hope that you had a wonderful time and a bit of rest with family and friends over the holidays. I trust that each of us is returning rejuvenated and well-rested for the second part of the 2019-20 school year and to complete this year's work on behalf of our over 1.5 million students in public schools in North Carolina. Before the holidays, the West Ed report was released offering recommendations that will help the state and the state board improve North Carolina's pre-K to 12 public school system and make decisions that benefit all public school students, especially those most vulnerable and at risk. As stated earlier regarding this report, there's a lot to be done. However, over the next 18 months, the State Board of Education has shifted priorities. Over the previous 18 months, the State Board of Education has shifted priorities through our strategic plan for the state, which provides a new focus and allows us to continue the needed urgency and partnerships to meet the constitutional promise for all students in North Carolina. The West Ed recommendations offer opportunities which the board will maximize and ultimately outline in our response to the court. I'd now like to welcome our newest member of the State Board, the most recent recipient of the Dingman Award, Mr. Monte Herring, and give him an opportunity. Oh. Well, bigger player just called him out. Get his picture done.
He's right here.
All right. Mr. Herring.
Well, good morning, Happy New Year. Welcome. I am on a learning curve, you hear me? Where I come from, you don't have to drive around the block 5 times and find a place to park. And then cost you $8 either, but it's good to be here. It's an honor. Anytime you deal with children and take their best interest at heart, it's a pleasure. And I'm looking forward to doing anything I can to make public education better.
We appreciate it, and we look forward to your comments and contributions on that vision. For our visitors and those listening online, today's agenda involves our board committee sessions, and tomorrow's agenda is the official meeting of the board when we'll vote on action items. Board members are reminded that it's our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of this board. Does any member of the board know of any conflict of interest or appearance of conflict with respect to any matters coming before us at this meeting? If so, please state them for the record. And if during the course of the meeting you become aware of an actual or apparent conflict of interest, please bring the matter to the attention of the chair. It will then be your duty to abstain from participating in the discussion on the matter and from voting on the matter. Board members, you've seen the agenda for over. Mr. Buxton.
Mr. Chairman, I request to be recused from EICS 3, which are the 2020 Charter School Renewal Recommendations. I serve on the board of one of the charters up for renewal, and I'd like to recuse myself from that
So noted.
item in its entirety.
Mr. Buxton excused from EICS 3. Okay. Board members, you've seen the agenda for over a week and had the opportunity to review it. I ask if there are any requests for changes to the agenda. Seeing none, I request a motion for approval.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Buxton. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. White. I'll now call on Dr. Townsend Smith to call the roll to capture the vote.
Sir? Mr. Buxton?
Yes.
Dr. Oxendine?
Yes.
Ms. Kamnitz?
Yes.
Mr. Keenan? Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Dr. Tipton Rogers?
Yes.
Ms. White?
Yes.
Mr. Chastain?
Yes.
Mr. Ford? Yes. Treasurer Falwell? Lieutenant Governor?
Yes.
Vice Chair Duncan?
Yes.
Chair Davis?
Yes. We have an agenda. Thank you. We'll now proceed to our committee meetings and begin with the Special Committee on Digital Learning and Computer Sciences, chaired by Lieutenant Governor Dan Forrest. Lieutenant Governor.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to everybody on the board and to everybody else with us in the audience and on the line today. We have our regular update, if you will, about digital learning and school connectivity, and as apropos as that would be, I'm having connectivity issues here. So, I am pretty sure that Vanessa is going to be kicking us off here, but if there's some other order of somebody that's going to be presenting, then you make your way to the podium. But we have a large group of presenters today, so I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you very much.
Good morning. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Happy New Year, everyone. It is my pleasure to be able to bring you our quarterly update on the Digital Learning Initiative. New board members, I'm Vanessa Wren, the Director of Digital Teaching and Learning, and I literally wake up energized every day that I get to come lead a team that's working to revolutionize teaching and what students do in a classroom daily. We know that our work has the power to totally modernize instructional design and how our students access learning. So it's a very rewarding and fulfilling position. The goals and objectives that we work and have worked to meet since 2015, when the Digital Learning Initiative became about, is modeled in this Digital Age Learning Plan. You will see many things there that you recognize: personalized learning, advancement on mastery, anytime, anywhere learning. That is the model that we've worked to create in all of our schools. One of the things that we know is that model is not only critical for student success, but it's also critical for our teacher success. Just as our students need access to high-quality digital content, so do our teachers. These are the things that we are working as they evolve. So in 2020, this digital age learning environment is moving forward. So I'm very pleased to say that we are making gains in what we see in our schools. Through the efforts of the Digital Learning Initiative and the grants, we've been modeling our own microcredentialing. We've also partnershiped with the Friday Institute to provide coaching and digital badging for districts. And we're making many gains, and we're proud to show you what we've done today with some of our presentations. So today we're going to learn more about the collaboration efforts with the Faculty of Educator Preparation Programs and understanding how to better attain the skills needed to develop digital age teachers. So without further ado, I'm very honored to introduce Dr. Hope Williams. She's the president of the North Carolina Independent Colleges and Universities, and her team, as they share more about their work aligning with the digital learning competencies for teachers and administrators. They also have aligned very tightly with our digital learning rubric. And if you know, the digital learning rubric is a rubric that all of our districts complete every 2 years, and they will actually complete that this June 30th, 2020. And it helps them guide their progress, how they're doing. So that's coming up very quickly. Next, after we hear from Dr. Hope Williams, we're going to hear from Ms. Erin Shoemaker. Ms. Shoemaker is the Director of Digital Innovation and Personalized Professional Learning in Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools. She's going to share their progress with micro-credentialing around professional learning. Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools is a recipient of one of our Digital Learning Initiative grants, and they've used these funds to move forward their progress around this work. So thank you so much for your attention today. Dr. Williams.
Thank you, and good morning, Mr. Chairman, Lieutenant Governor, all the members of the committee. Appreciate so much you're having us here today. I'm doing the introduction, and then I will be calling on our faculty to make the presentation. But we're delighted to be here and to be able to present this work to you, and there has been a lot of work on this, so we're excited to be able to show it to you today and answer any questions you might have about it. The first thing I do want to say, though, however, is to thank you for the support for making this opportunity available. Both the board and department have been terrific in terms of supporting this effort, and without that, I don't know that we could have made that happen. You've already received a report on Phase 1, and now we have added into our working group of NCICU faculty, we've added UNC faculty as well. And I will say that we often talk about the need for more collaboration, but our teacher educators have been doing that across our sectors among institutions for a long, long time, and in fact even have their own organization of the North Carolina Association of Classroom Teacher Educators that has been meeting for years. So they are all in on collaboration, and that is making this work so much easier. So we're delighted to have the UNC faculty join us in this work. I do want to make sure that we also talk about the fact that we will have a seminar coming up. We had one last year as a part of our first phase. Some of you were there. We were at the Rowan Salisbury Schools. This year on February 14th, so you're welcome to come spend your Valentine's Day with us. We'll let you go back home for your evening celebration, but come spend it with us at a seminar that this year will be at Elon University. And you're all invited. We'd love to have you join us. We think it's going to be another great seminar and symposium, and we're excited about that. I also want to mention that we know that DigiLearn presented last month, and I just wanted to assure you that Myra Best, Executive Director of DigiLearn, and I have been in close contact and discussion as they have developed their project, and we are working on ours to make sure that they are complementary. Their focus, of course, is on in-service teachers, and ours is on teacher educators and teacher education students. And we're already making plans to meet and make sure that we are in alignment and not duplicating. So we're excited about that. I do want to recognize our team here today. First of all, Tom West is our Vice President for Government Relations and General Counsel of NCICU. He's the one who meets regularly with all of our teacher education folks throughout the academic year. And so it was a natural piece for him to come in and work on this project as well, on the Digital Learning Initiative. We're delighted also to have the person managing this project is Denise Adams. Some of you may know her from when she was on the staff of the General Assembly. And if she can help manage things over there, we knew she could do a great job with us. So we are delighted that she is managing that process for us. We also have two of our folks who will be presenting today, of our professors among our institutions, Jackie Ennis from Barton College and Patricia Fecker from Methodist University. We also have some other team members here with us, Betty Liverman from Shaw University and Jennifer Russell from William Peace University, as well as one of our UNC faculty members, Carrie Parker from North Carolina State. So at this time, I would like to call our team together to come up and make the presentation, and that would be, as I mentioned, Jackie Ennis and Patricia Fecker. Thank you, and we'll be happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman, if there are some.
Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity to tell you about what we're doing. Just a little review to get us started. This started with State Law 2017-57, Section 72.3. Oh, good, thank you. KA. And so with this, they directed the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction to collaborate with the University of North Carolina educator preparation programs. And we refer to education preparation programs as EPPs. So you may hear me referencing EPPs throughout my conversation. But they want us to develop a comprehensive professional development strategy and solution for students and teachers in the UNC EPPs. And then we asked, could the private schools in NCICU also be included, because as Dr. Williams pointed out, we do like to collaborate. And also about a fourth of the teachers who are produced in North Carolina each year come from NCICU schools. So we have been very pleased to have this opportunity to collaborate and work on developing these strategies. So that's an overview, and then I will give you a little bit of information about Phase 1 and a big overview for Phases 2 and 3, and my colleague, Dr. Fecker, will give you more information. As an educator, I know we all do better if we get a big overview first and understand what the structure is, and then we can put some details into it to make sense. So as we began our journey, we started with what we are now referring to as Phase 1. It was our original scope of work. And as we completed that, we realized there were additional tasks that we wanted to continue. And so we developed into additional contracts for Phase 2, and we're currently working on Phase 3 of this plan. So in Phase 1, we formed the NCICU work group, and we hired, as she mentioned, Denise Adams as our coordinator. And we hosted and provided meetings, but we also collaborated very importantly with DPI, the Friday Institute, and the UNC system in developing a comprehensive professional development strategy and solution. And we also hosted a digital learning research symposium, which I'll tell you a little bit more about, and we delivered to DPI an outline of our initial draft. With our symposium, we gathered in Rowan Salisbury schools, and we had the opportunity there to hear from veteran teachers in that school. We took field trips out. We had the heads of education from all of the schools in the UNC system and in the NCICU system were invited. We invited some legislators, we invited some of you, and we had a chance for people to gather together and give input on our project. So we were able to hear from some of the teachers and students in the Rowan Salisbury schools. We had an address by Dr. Lynn Moody, the superintendent of that school. We heard from Representative Craig Horn. We took field trips to the school. We had panel presentations by some of their school members. We even had poster sessions. We also organized some ed camp sessions where we put everybody into small groups, gave them topics. They could choose which topic interested them. And we got feedback from them on topics that we wanted to use to guide our work, such as how do you think, what competencies do you think not just teachers need, but teachers who are graduating and getting ready to start teaching? What do we need for our EPPs to provide for our future teachers to be ready for the classrooms? We talked to them about creative financing. How do we make this work? What are the professional development needs that you see? How do we collaborate? So as we met in small groups, we got feedback from them, and that feedback from a wide variety of constituents helped to form and guide our work through our next phases. We also used this feedback to help us revise the digital learning progress rubric, which had already been made by the Friday Institute and others collaborating with them, but we needed to make that appropriate for beginning teachers, because as we looked at the language of a lot of the documents, it was suited for teachers who were already practicing, but trying to put this in place with people who are doing internships and student teaching doesn't always fit. So we took their basics and then we adapted it to fit our situation so that our students would come out ready to take on the challenges of working with students in the public schools. Then we entered phase 2. So with that, we had 5 charges. This slide shows the first 3, that we would design and disseminate digital learning competencies for North Carolina EPP faculty. Again, there were competencies that had been made for teachers, but they didn't always fit EPP faculty and our efforts to prepare our students. So we used that input we had gotten from the seminar, we used other input, and we made standards. We just revised them to suit the needs of the EPPs. We also developed and delivered, in conjunction with the Friday Institute, a new version of the digital learning progress rubric for EPPs. Again, we took their original rubric, but with their collaboration, we made a version for EPPs. We conducted an assessment and analysis of the current digital learning practices by using that rubric. We sent it out to all schools, EPPs in the UNC system and in the NCICU system, and got feedback from them so that, again, it would help inform our work. And then on the next slide, you see our last 2 parts of phase 2, which were to develop and deliver a professional development strategy. And we have done that. And then we held at least 3 convenings of representatives from the North Carolina Colleges of Education. And then a big overview of phase 3 is that we presented this fall at the NCACD Fall Forum. Dr. Williams mentioned that we have our own organization. It's the North Carolina Association for Teachers of Colleges of Education. And so again, this includes people from across the state, and we gave them information about our work. We also gave them a link where they could go back and provide additional feedback to us to continue to inform what we are doing. We are now working on refining the professional development strategy and collaborating, and we are planning right now a second symposium which will be held February 14th for all EPP deans and department chairs, and that will be held at Elon University. So on the next slide, we have just a little more information about those digital learning competencies that, as I noted earlier, had been developed for public school teachers. We revised them for EPP faculty. Our emphasis is to get our EPP faculty to really have ownership of these competencies so that they are ready to teach their students what they need to know to go out into the world as first-year teachers. There's a link down at the bottom. We won't click on it right now, but this link is for you so that you can see, on this page, you get to see the overview of the 4 areas that, the same 4 areas that were in the original competencies and how we've modified them for our use. And you can later click on that link and see the details of how we develop those strategies for EPPs. And then on the next slide, we just have a reminder again of the broad stakeholder engagement and opportunities for input that we think have been key to this program. And again, you'll see the NCICU schools, UNC system schools, our Digital Learning Research Symposium that was held last year, the one we're getting ready to hold again this year, the North Carolina Digital Age Learning Initiative. I've mentioned that we've worked with Rowan Salisbury School System. We also took field trips to a STEM school that was High Falls Elementary School in Moore County Schools, and a field trip that focused on not only digital learning but personalized learning at Shuford Elementary and Newton Conover schools. So again, we've just pulled from those different sources, and we think that is the strength of the groundwork that we're doing. I'm now going to let Dr. Fecker tell you a little more details about our last 2 phases.
Thank you. Good morning. So Jackie took us through the overview of the phases, and my job is to take you into a little bit of a deeper dive on what that work looks like and sounds like at this point. One of the primary charges that we were given was to take the existing digital learning progress rubric and modify and revise it and streamline it for EPPs. One of the pieces that was crucial for us during that work was to make sure that we were looking at how K-12 and charter school systems already had this resource in place and how we could take that and build it up through the system through higher ed. So we took time to revise those, and again, at the bottom, this is the cover page of it. The bottom, it has a link to the fully revised document. But the purpose of this document is to give EPPs a roadmap for continuous improvement and take an overview of where best practices and expectations currently are in the field for where digital learning should occur. Within that, there are 4 main areas that we focus on: leadership and in digital learning, content and instruction, professional learning, and data assessment. So as a team, we made revisions and refined the overarching rubric so that it was in alignment with K-12 and the charter schools. But then our secondary task was to take specifically the professional learning strand and come up with a professional learning development strategy for EPPs. So once we took that work, we moved in and moved over into disseminating this rubric with the help of Friday Institute and bringing the data back to inform the professional development strategy. As we stated, we sent the rubric to all EPPs in the state, NCICU, and the UNC system. 34 EPPs completed the rubric, and that's the first line going across that shows the data that is coming in for the overall scores. The rubric is designed to have 4 categories, early being the beginning stages and targeted being the optimum place that we want to end up. This data came back very much what we were expecting, that because we hadn't looked at systems this way, we weren't expecting everybody to be over in the targeted section of the rubric. So in order to be targeted, you have to have achieved all the indicators in early and developing and advanced to become targeted. Most of our EPPs, as you can see, are looking at 68% are in that developing stage, and that's a really good place to begin growing and changing our programs and aligning with digital learning practices. If you look at under the chart below, it has the overall scores by domain. So those 4 domains, taking a look at leadership, professional learning, content instruction, and data assessment again, you can see as the schools are progressing where they see their strengths in those domains. In addition to looking at the digital learning practices from the EPP level, we also asked for faculty members to take a survey. It's called the School Needs Technology Needs Assessment, and have them reflect on their related practices. We wanted to not only talk to systems and see where overall we are as we perceive our program is, but we wanted to begin to personalize and target instruction for those individual faculty. And that data came back indicating that they wanted opportunities and areas to identify location and information and evaluation of technology resources that are out in the field. They want learner-centered technology teaching strategies and the use of technology to differentiate instruction for special needs. So what did we do with all of this data? After we had it, we wanted to take all of the pieces from phase 1, phase 2, the symposiums, the ed camps, the surveys, and bring it back and come up with that professional development strategy. So of course, continuous improvement. That's how we always work, and that's how we plan to move from those developing stages over to the targeted. So as part of our strategy, we have 4 steps here, where EPPs, they complete the rubric. We use the same recommendations that K-12 is using, where they do it every 2 years, and we use the faculty. Take that information, make your plan and your vision statement, create your continuous improvement, implement it, and then go back at the end of that cycle and repeat. After we talked about that that continuous improvement, what does that strategy look like? And you've heard a lot about microcredentialing across current times. It seems to be the buzzword, but it really seems to be not just a buzzword, but where we need to be thinking about for the continuum of skills that everybody has. So we too came up with microcredentialing, and based on our research, we're finding that there is not a consistent, cohesive guidance for EPP programs across research right now. But there is research that is telling us to focus on technology and enabling learners and teaching through creation and production and problem solving. Build sustainable programs and systems of professional development that strengthen and continuously provide opportunities for us to refresh and hone in our skills as educators. Much like the same research you're hearing for K-12. Educator research is the same. We're all trying to strive and continuously improve within this system of change. So, micro-credentialing, it's that on-demand, shareable, personalized methods of learning and skill development. It's performance-based, personalized, flexible, varied learning opportunities. How do we target the professor that is steeped in the research and that is their life work, versus the professor who is not as familiar with it and wants that additional extra support and is seeking to change practices. So how is it effective and efficiently supplied and provided for them and continues to grow and change over time? So how does it support our EPPs? How does the strategy support us? Well, it's a PD for individual faculty. It's a way for EPP faculty to focus on those continuous improvement goals. And it's a place that we can possibly build in some networking and publication opportunities for our faculty. It was really important to us as we were working on this to take a look at the strengths and the resources that we have across the state. EPP faculty has lots of resources and we wanted to build on those. Hence the reason the variety of members that are on our group are based from across the state as well as the UNC system, so that we can be focused on what is happening on the eastern side of the state as well as the western side and then in the middle. How would an EPP faculty member who would want to approach and complete this, when this system or however the system is fully developed, of course it's that continuous improvement plan for the faculty member. So they complete a PDP. They identify the areas that they want. We've got the 4 digital learning competencies. Where is it that we need to focus and where do I want to focus personally? They would create a contract and identify this is my area, and then they would participate in professional development or conferences or somehow a professional learning experience. Complete artifacts or submit evidence of completion of this work and submit that to the overseeing entity that within our plan we were asked, the larger plan we were asked to identify how this would be managed and paid for and worked through so that people would be able to receive the credentials. And then the artifacts that they reviewed would be reviewed for submission, artifact submission. Those pieces that were publishable, that folks had asked for us to publish, would be put in a place that were open access and become open source for university faculty and or other folks in the public to be able to gain access to. One of the additional pieces with micro-credentialing, digital badging, and personalized learning is that it's a recursive process. And so this process can happen multiple times. Those of us who hold teaching licenses in North Carolina, we must maintain and receive 2 digital CEUs every licensure cycle. So we will continue to seek professional development in these areas, but we also know that the field changes as rapidly as I buy my iPhone yesterday, and they're already coming up with iPhone 27.17 version. And so as that technology continues to change, we need to continue to be able to have opportunities to grow and move with that field. And so this is a way that we can do 4 cycles within the 4 digital learning competencies if you were to choose to do that. And you would complete that same cycle of going through the professional development. There is a vision that we would be able to award digital badges that either universities could incorporate if they chose to as part of their marketing, and or a individual faculty member could bring into their own personal vitas or their web pages, however they would like to use that information to enhance and market themselves. Right, so that is just a real quick overview of the work that we are doing. Again, the group that has been working on this, the presentation and the current strategy, NCICU presented that and submitted that to the state board this summer with the support of the UNC system, and the UNC system is partnering with us and continuing our work this year in phase 3 as we refine and continue to develop and grow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I certainly would like to also take this opportunity. I thank you for the opportunity to undertake this project. And we know, of course, that the funds coming to us for projects such as this have to start in a different building over at the General Assembly, and Representative Horn is here today, and we just want to say thank you to him as well for having that as a priority to be able to make it possible for us to do that.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions? Okay, thank y'all. Thank y'all for your presentation. I think we have one more presentation. I think Mr. Nicolaides is he in here?
Actually, Aaron Shoemaker.
Aaron Shoemaker.
Aaron from Charlotte Mecklenburg is going to present. Last month, you got to hear from DigiLearn and micro-credentialing, so it was very fortunate that we had this scheduled because you're going to hear what Charlotte Mech is doing now with Charlotte's professional learning around that. So very quickly, Aaron's going to present, and then it'll go to Michael Nicolaides.
Thank you. And Aaron, excuse me, I just don't have the list this morning, but thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Good morning. My name is Erin Shoemaker. I have the privilege of serving the Charlotte Mecklenburg community as the Director of Digital Innovation and Personalized Professional Learning. And today I'm excited to share with you the beginning of our journey with adult competency-based learning and micro-credentialing in CMS. So if you could for a minute, I'm going to ask you to play along with me for a minute. If you could imagine in your mind that you've been invited to a party and that you've been asked to bring the cake. So I'd like you to imagine what type of cake you're going to bring. You might be starting to ask yourself some questions because I didn't give you quite enough information.
Always chocolate. Chocolate is always the answer.
You're right.
No question.
Let me help you out a little bit with that. So you've been invited to a birthday party for a dear friend of yours. It's an adult friend. They love chocolate, of course. And they enjoy the simpler things in life. The next thing that you needed to decide on is if you were going to bake your own cake or if you're going to go to the store and buy a cake. So let's look at the differences between those. So if we go to the store and buy a cake, it comes prepackaged. It comes nice and neat, perfect, everything's put on there for you. There's no accountability. So if it doesn't taste good, we can blame the store. If it tastes great, you can take all the credit for that too. But you really have no accountability for what it tastes like in the end. It looks perfect, but there's little room for personalizing or changing. You have the options that are in the store, and that's it. It's quick, it's convenient, it's fast. You go to the store, you pick it out, you're on your way. Now let's consider if you were to bake your own cake. You can personalize it any way you want. So if your friend loves gold sprinkles, you can put gold sprinkles all over it. But you can personalize it however you want it to be. You have complete accountability. So if it tastes great, you're going to feel the reward of that. If it doesn't taste so great, you're going to go back and try again. It can be really messy at first. If this is the first time making a cake, it might fall apart. You might have to retry it again. And you get to demonstrate your skills. You get to be really proud when you bring that cake that you made to your friend's party, because you get to say, I made this. So my question for you is then, do we want our educators in our system to be buyers of their professional learning or bakers? Do we want them to go through the motions of being a buyer, try some strategies, but basically just stay the same? Or do we want them to really roll up their sleeves, dig in, and engage in new learning, apply strategies, and make lasting change to their practice? So this was kind of the beginning of where we started in CMS, and we started digging into some research. This is a TNTP report, the Mirage report, that looked at traditional professional development. So they found that teachers typically spend 150 hours a year, 19 total days, and on average $18,000 per educator on professional learning. And if you think about a system the size of CMS, the millions of dollars that would equal in professional learning for teachers. And after 10 years in their career, that would equal 1 full year of their career being engaged in some sort of PD. Typically, it's a one-size-fits-all model. There's one learning target at the end. It's seat time. People come, they sit in the PD, they go home. So with that amount of time, money, resources, we would think that we would see some really great results with that. But here's what they found. 7 out of 10 teachers, their performance stayed the same or declined, and only 3 out of 10 teachers actually improved in their performance. So we wanted to look at this within CMS, and what can we do about that? How can we make professional learning count for our teachers? How can we have it make an impact within our system without just throwing additional dollars at professional learning? So we have started in on a journey with microcredentialing with a grant from DPI to get us started on this journey that's really given us the opportunity to try some things out. So what we've focused on is bite-sized topics for microcredentials. We know that teachers can focus on one skill or one competency at a time. That is personalized, so they have some choice in what those competencies are that they're focused on based on their needs in their classroom. That is flexible for adult learners. That learning anytime, anywhere model is really important for adult learners. That it's performance-based, which has been one of the biggest changes and challenges, is that we're looking for teachers to show mastery near the end and not just seat time, not just showing up and getting something done, but they really have to show how this is making change in their practice in the classroom, and that's a mindset shift. And then supported learning. So that we know with this mindset shift, we need to support our teachers in that and providing coaches, both virtually providing coaches and in person. So thinking about this approach, we've tried a few things in CMS, microcredentialing, which I'm going to dig into a little bit more, but we've also done a year-long course for teachers that we call Impact. That is, they focus on a problem of practice, and they spend a year diving into that and attending some virtual learning, some in-person learning, some learning that we set up within the community so that at the end they can show how they've made change within their classroom. So when we first received the grant, we really wanted to be intentional on how we're using these funds. So we wanted to think about our investment, our coherence, and our impact. So our investment, we have time, money, and people. Our time we wanted to use really carefully. We created a cross-functional committee. Our committee that focuses on digital learning, our personalized learning team, our learning and teaching team, some school-based staff, to form a committee that really dug into what does competency-based learning and teaching look and feel like for teachers, and what are the mindset shifts that they're going to experience, and how can we be in front of that. Also, our money. So we are utilizing our money in two big pockets. One, a platform to house our microcredentials, and also stipends for teachers to earn as they complete microcredentials. After our first pilot year, one of our biggest learnings was that there really needs to be an incentive for teachers to take on microcredentialing. And right now, that's coming in the form of a stipend. We think that later on, as we continue moving through this journey, that microcredentials could be attached to things like advanced teaching roles, because we're also piloting that within our district, that we could move on to microcredentials leading to advancement in one of those advanced teaching roles where teachers can earn more money. Coherence. With microcredentialing, we wanted to make sure that this didn't feel like something else for teachers that they had to do, that it needed to fit with the district and state visions and missions. One of the first things that we started with was the digital learning competencies, and it's linked on there for you. The state has done a great job of laying out what those indicators are. We needed to take it actually to the next step before we could develop a microcredential. We really need to know what it looked like for teachers to meet and master that indicator or that competency. So we created a 2-point rubric and developed it into not yet or yes to see. We have to know, if we're gonna say yes, you've mastered, or no, you haven't, we have to know what that means and what that looks like. And it also really helps our teachers to know what the expectation is at the end. So it's that backwards planning model. After we did that, we were able to start designing our microcredentials. And we're doing that using an ADDIE model, which allows for ownership, for teacher ownership of their learning. So within the ADDIE model, teachers start by identifying a competency that they'd like to work on, and they analyze using data where they are within that competency and what they'd like to work on. Then they're able to design and develop a plan. They engage in some learning, they develop a plan and how they're going to show that they've mastered at the end. Next, they're able to implement, and this is the fun part. This is the part that they usually take videos of to share with us, or they take pictures, or they give us student work samples. And then at the end, they're able to evaluate based on their plan if they have been able to meet that need. So we tried this out last year. It was our first pilot year, really focusing on the digital learning competencies and teachers earning microcredentials. We had 56 participants. We had 3 different microcredentials that they could choose from to engage in. Using digital tools for formative assessment was our most chosen. 50% of people chose that. Then we focused on the SAMR model. It's really integrating technology into your instruction in an effective way, and then digital citizenship. This year, we have added on a 4th microcredential, and that's leadership within digital learning. Some of the impact that we've seen is listed up on the slide for you, but you can see that ultimately, the one that I focus on the most is that it's had a positive impact on their students in their classroom. So that what they're learning, what the teacher is learning, is showing up then in the classroom. I think that is really important. Oftentimes when we go to PD, we take it in, it's great, then we go back to the school site, and everything else hits us, and we forget. Or we don't have time to implement. Or nobody's holding us accountable to implement, and I don't have anybody to support me in the process, so I might try it, and then I get stuck, and I don't know what to do next. So with microcredentialing, you're being held accountable, and there's coaches along the way to help you. One of the things that we keep hearing teachers say is how excited they are about having the support and the coaching that goes along with microcredentials. And they also love that they are being held, I don't know if these go together, but they love that they're being held accountable for something. They're like, oh, somebody's actually gonna check up on me. Somebody's gonna actually look at my work and how I'm implementing and provide feedback for me. So they really have liked that process as well. So our next steps, right now we're in year 2 with our grant, but these are some of the big questions that we still have. How do we align competency-based learning with CEUs for licensure requirements? We know that CEUs are based on seat time. Microcredentials are based on mastery-based learning. And so how do we balance those out so that people are getting CEUs for their time being spent, but not everybody's spending the same amount of time, and kind of balancing that piece. So we're grappling with that right now. Expanding microcredentials outside of just the digital learning competencies, like I mentioned, with advanced teaching roles, getting into core instruction. So how do we link that together and make this a sustainable, more robust, personalized learning experience for adults? That's the last slide I have. But I also just want to thank you for the opportunity for being here today. We are committed, CMS is committed to serving as partners in this work with microcredentialing as we're moving forward with the state and also with our partner school districts around the state. So thank you so much for having me, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much, and just want to highlight that we have reached a new low in presentations. Talking about chocolate cake, showing pictures of chocolate cake, but no chocolate cake. That was great. Thank you very much for that. And do we have any comments or questions from everybody? Yeah.
Ms. Shoemaker, hi. And when I'm coaching my own teachers with regards to professional development, I always talk about that professional development is really not about them. It's really about the scholars that they teach. And one of the things I wanted to really just make a praise point for you about was that competency-based professional development is really all about the transfer of the learning to what we do in the classroom.
That's right.
And I love that you all have taken such a direct, impact-oriented approach to that. And in particular, I want to comment that your rubric for the competency-based professional development is so crystal clear. It's either yes, you develop that competency and can implement in the classroom, or you're not there yet. And I love that phrase, not yet. And I would love for us to continue using that phrase as we think about student competency and standardized testing, when we think about scoring schools in North Carolina. Not yet has such a feeling of optimism. You're getting there, but you're not there yet, but you'll get there.
Thank you. I also just want to say we encourage, not encourage, but it's okay if you fail and don't get it the first time. With that phrase being not yet, we're going to coach you and help you along to make sure that you can get there. We want you to keep going and keep trying because it's important for our students. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Buxton, I'm sorry.
One comment, and maybe you can elaborate a little bit. To me, the hard thing about micro-credentials has been previously, it's kind of a supply side play. You're supplying teachers with tools or opportunities. There's not a demand side to it, so for a lot of teachers who may not want to go through it or don't see, you guys seem to be solving that a little bit with the stipends and with the coaching and level of accountability, and so there are incentives for teachers to do it. And I'd just love you to talk any more about what you're learning there, because I think as we get into that conversation, that's an important thing for us to be thinking about.
It's really important, and one of the biggest things that we've learned is that there has to be some sort of incentive for teachers. And so to think a little bit, we're doing a stipend right now for teachers because we are so fortunate to have this grant. Beyond the grant, is it sustainable to continue giving teachers a stipend for every microcredential as we grow? We're not so sure about that, but what it is sustainable is our advanced teaching roles that teachers can apply for. I'm not sure how familiar everybody is with those, but teaching roles where they come out of the classroom and can be coaches themselves, but they have to earn those through a set of another rubric that we use to determine if they can are eligible for those roles, and they earn up to $20,000 more a year for those roles. And so instead of using the rubric, what if they had to earn microcredentials to show their competency of specific skills? And that is their incentive for earning the microcredentials, so advancement in their career.
Excellent, very
So
helpful.
that's kind of where our minds are going right now.
Yeah, very helpful, thank you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. We appreciate your time today. Thanks for the presentation. We have one more presentation up today, and that is Ms. Catherine Johnson's going to present on school connectivity report.
Thank you. I'm actually not going to give the full presentation for you. Michael Nicolaides apologizes. He is out sick today. So I just get to introduce our annual school connectivity report. And this report will be going to the General Assembly as it does every year, but you all are seeing it today. And here to present the report to you are two professionals. Our school connectivity manager from Technology Services is Michael Ramsey. And from the Friday Institute, we have Ray Zeiss. And we thank them and their staff for all their hard work on this report. I'll turn it over to Michael.
Thank you, Catherine. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Lieutenant Governor, members of the board. I am Michael Ramsey. I'm the manager of the School Connectivity and K-12 Cybersecurity Group. I'm proud to present this report to you for your consideration to send to the General Assembly. I apologize, I don't have any cake slides, but I do have a couple pie charts.
Touche.
I'm here all week. My goal is to quickly summarize our detailed 36-page report, highlighting our progress to date, celebrating our successes, and more importantly, to provide you with the information to understand our challenges and support our recommendations to the General Assembly. I will be moving quickly through this, but please feel free to stop me and ask any questions as we go along. Yes, this works. School Connectivity Initiative. Dr. Wren and I kind of kid around that with digital teaching and learning, the School Connectivity Initiative is really the digital Department of Transportation. We're the highway, we get the stuff there. We enable a lot. This is our overall goals. We want to provide secure, reliable, high performance, and highly functioning connectivity to all North Carolina public schools. We've got fiber to every school except one, which is a tiny school on an island, and but they have sufficient bandwidth for what's going on. But everybody else has fiber. They're connected to the North Carolina Research and Education Network. We give them training, not only technical, but also for leadership training, Chief Technology Officer, and I'll get to that in a minute. E-rate program support. I will expand on what the E-rate program is, but the big picture is that we get $32 million in annual state funds, and we're able to leverage that into an effect of close to $100 million in benefit to all the schools in North Carolina. We do this through our own cooperative purchasing agreements, and our big goal is to have a net zero local cost for the schools to have wireless in the classroom. This graphic illustrates the key milestones that we've had over the years, beginning first in 2006 with reliable internet, developing certified educational chief technology officers through the UNC School of Government, improving security through identity access management, taking full advantage of the E-rate program, and in 2018, we were actually able to say, yes, we've got wireless in every classroom in North Carolina. That's a big deal. This graphic illustrates the ecosystem that it takes. This is not just a DPI thing. It takes a village, as they say, of both public and private partnerships. There's this board, the Friday Institute, and the School of Government help us with policy development, data analysis and modeling, and leadership training. MCNC and their statewide network, NCREN, which stands for North Carolina Research and Education Network, provides internet access. Their team provides cybersecurity and independent technical consulting to the schools. North Carolina Department of Information Technology and private providers do the networking between schools. We call those a wide area network, as well as provide the hardware and the infrastructure. And last but certainly not least, DPI's E-rate team helps all the schools, regardless of size, to file E-rate and take the maximum advantage of the E-rate program. So the E-rate program is a federal program run by the FCC, provides discounts for internet-related services and goods, routers, access points, as well as the internet circuits themselves. Up to 90% discount for the schools. If you look on your cell phone bill or any phone bill, you'll see one of your little taxes or fees is the Universal Service Fund. That money is what goes into E-rate, and it provides the funding for all of this. How much of a discount a school gets is based on participation in the National School Lunch Program. And one of our complicating factors is that the apply for E-rate, get approval, deploy, and then get the money back process takes about 18 months, and it spans fiscal years. That's a complication for us, and we address it in one of our recommendations coming up. North Carolina in E-rate utilization. North Carolina ranks first nationally in E-rate funds for the Category 2, which I'll detail that, received per student. We get about $95.79 for each student over the past year. In 2019, schools submitted projects for a little over $90 million in total cost. Almost $65.5 million was paid for by E-rate. We have a 98% approval of all requests that go in. Our average discount rate is 70%. In North Carolina, 87% of all North Carolina E-rate requests were done through DPI school connectivity and our contracts. Keep in mind that we only deal with the public schools, but private schools and libraries are also eligible for E-rate. So that's why it's not a higher number than 87%. And the team is a significant factor in all of that. Really briefly, I'm going to go through the financial things. So some things are E-rate eligible, some things are not. The first three line items are eligible for getting E-rate discounts or reimbursement for. So in internet, our fiber connections to in between the schools and the classroom Wi-Fi, those are all eligible for E-rate. You can see the total cost there. You can see the portion that E-rate paid for, and then the state portion. When E-rate gives a school, let's say the school has an 80% discount rate, the school applies for the project. When E-rate approves it, they will pay the vendor 80% of the total cost. The school is to come up with the remaining 20%. School connectivity has funds from the legislature where we pay that 20%. So that's where we get to that zero net local cost for the schools to provide wireless to the classroom. The remaining items, client network engineering and cybersecurity, those are if a school has network troubles or they need help planning, doing technology planning, what's our needs assessments, our security status. We go through through MCNC for that. That's not E-rate eligible. The IAM, Identity Access Management, firewall services, content filtering, all those things are not E-rate eligible, so the state is paying those directly out. Program administration, this is the DPI staff, our contract with Friday Institute to help me make all these pretty numbers make sense. Funds for Learning does some E-rate stuff. What's really significant here that I want to point out that our program administration costs, we're less than 1% of total to run this whole $87.6 million thing. We're doing it for around $1.2 million. I think that's a significant point. I'm proud of it. All right, so how do we use our state appropriations? We received $31.2 million last year. We were able to supplement with, we get invoiced for the internet, we pay the whole internet, then we file to E-rate to actually get reimbursed for that. And because of the 18-month cycle, I'm getting in $10 million this year for the internet that I paid last year. Does that make sense? So I'm taking that $10 million plus my 31.2 from the state to keep everything kind of rolling along. Cash flow. The schools received about $88 million in total value for internet and classroom Wi-Fi infrastructure. The big takeaway from this, when you crunch all the numbers, for every dollar in state funding that goes into school connectivity, we're able to turn it around and deliver $3.81 in value. It's a pretty good return on investment. All right, so I want to show you a little bit over the past 5 years, our performance, really big numbers. The key thing that I want to pull out here is that when you look at the utilization, because of the 18-month lag time, you'll see that 2018 says 76% utilization. The filing deadline for invoices for 2018 is actually February 2020. So there's still some invoices that are yet to be paid. Why are we not at 100% utilization? If we're at 100% utilization, that means the project probably went over budget and the state had to pay even more money. But by keeping it slightly under, that means we're maximizing both state and the federal dollars in this. All right, at this time, I'd like to introduce Ray Zeiss from the Friday Institute. He's going to go over the pretty graphs and explain this, and he gets to give you the pie.
This is a historical view of bandwidth, contracted bandwidth with MCNC over the past 7 or so years. There's an upward trend. We're starting to see things level off as we're getting to one-to-one programs at all the school districts. I won't say we're reaching a peak, but we're not growing at the 40 and 50% year over year that we were seeing. So this is these three graphs show the average utilization, the peak utilization, and contracted. It kind of looks like it goes down sometimes. The summers, obviously, we don't use nearly as much bandwidth, and testing in certain months really drives a lot of bandwidth. So that's why it's so bumpy. And also, the peaks are measured like every 5 minutes. It's a statistical average, so we could actually see more at any instantaneous point. This is the pie chart, and it's pretty complicated, but to sum it up, it's basically saying that regardless of the size of the school district, all kids have equal access to the same high-quality internet through NCREN. And what we're showing here is the bigger districts have the 30 gigabit pipe to the internet, but they also have more students. When you divide it all out, I think it comes out to about 200 kilobits per student, which is twice the target from last year that some groups have said. There's other targets that are a megabit or 4 megabits, which we think are a little overkill, especially since we aggregate at the state level. But suffice it to say, we monitor the network, and as soon as we see a 60% utilization, we go ahead and up them to the next speed level. So the perceived internet speed to the school district is basically infinite. They'll never hit a wall and get maxed out. That's unique to our program, I think. This is the per student utilization at 98, average utilization of 98 kilobits, about 100 kilobits per student. And we did the numbers, it's like the peak utilization at 59.9%. So we're keeping it toned right in at 60%, which when we do the upgrades. So that's just a data point there. And if you want to go back to this one. Thank you.
If you guys can just speed it up a little bit, we're running a little bit behind time, so if we can.
Got
just
it.
pick up the
I
pace.
will,
Thank you.
I got 3 slides left, I believe. So the FCC made some changes in December. We need, they're giving a lot more money available, and we're not going to be able to do the zero net cost if we do not get an additional $15 million for non-recurring for this 1 year. This is all detailed in our report. Starting in 21 through 25, there's a slight bump in. We just need 4.6 to cover that. Cybersecurity is a huge deal. It is growing. The biggest issue for K-12 is payroll diversion and ransomware. We have had one instance where a school, somebody contacted HR, said, hey, I want to change my direct deposit, and they did it, and it went to a bank in North Dakota. It happens, and it was an innocent mistake, but we've got to get focused on that. We were supposed to there's $550,000 in the budget that has yet to be passed that we need, and there's further details on here. I apologize if I'm going through this a little bit too fast, but there's a gap that exists between the value of the data and the approach to cybersecurity. A student record with a social security number is worth $500. Multiply that times the 1.6 million students we have, that's our risk that's out there. to say nothing about the recovery in dealing with ransomware. And unfortunately, I'm seeing schools that are getting ransomware insurance, yet in one instance, they're not getting the payout because they weren't secure enough in the first place. So it's wasted money. These are our considerations. They're in the report. I will not read all of these to you for the sake of time. Are there any specific questions that you have? Forgive me if I'm summarizing this way too much.
Well, let me just kind of wrap this up a little bit here. One is I don't think that the 15 million is a big ask at all for cybersecurity, for the whole state to get us all up to speed where we should be. So thank you for that, and we'll start working on that. But just in a nutshell, for everybody here, that this is, as it was already stated, we are further ahead on this than anybody else in the country. There's no state that's even close to North Carolina on this, not just about having every classroom connected, but beyond that, the team that's been put together. I see Gene Davis out there from MCNC and probably others that have been working on this for years as well to make sure that North Carolina's number one here. And the FCC doesn't just give us the most money just because we're a big state or anything else. It's because of all these people that have been working really hard. And when you show up at the FCC with a dashboard that they can literally pull up right now in real time, and they can see utilization of every single classroom that's going on across the state because of the work that these gentlemen have been doing, that is real to them. And you have your E-rate coordinators that are there regularly talking to these folks in DC. You have the folks at the Friday Institute and others that are building these relationships that are ensuring that our students then are getting the benefit and leveraging these dollars to our state. And so that's a really big deal. I mean, this is one of those highlight, bright spot kind of things that we should all be proud of, and we should be sharing with the world and our communities that we have a great team doing this. So thank you guys very much for everything you do every day that's behind the scenes. We'd never know. Even I saw some head shaking over there from people that are obviously very thankful that the state picks up 20% of this cost related to connectivity. And we just don't even know these things. We don't celebrate them. So thank you for that. Do we have any final questions or comments? Really quick if we do.
I have 5 seconds, I promise. So the first goal in our new state board strategic plan is to eliminate opportunity gaps. Yes. Eliminate opportunity gaps. And I think you didn't say equity in your presentation, but for somebody who works in a Tier 1 county, this resonates as equity work for us. So just thank you for that.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. We appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Excuse me, congratulations to the team that's achieved these most important accomplishments. With every accomplishment, there's a new challenge, and I think our new challenge in front of us on this item is to close those last mile gaps to get connectivity to students' homes so that they're able to close the homework gap and continue to progress in their education. So we look forward to meeting that challenge as well. Before proceeding, I would like to recognize, he may have departed, the House Education Appropriations and Policy Chair, Representative Horn, but we would thank him for his attendance today and particularly for his support of public school students across the state. I'll now turn to Mr. James Ford, Chair of our Strategic Planning Committee, for that committee's work. Mr. Ford.
A participant has joined the conference.
I think he's joining by phone.
Yes. Hey, this is Mr. Ford. I do apologize. About 30 seconds ago, the line just dropped. So I suppose I'm up?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, this is Mr. Ford, Chair of the Strategic Planning Committee, joined alongside my Vice Chair, Ms. Jill Kamitz, and we're in 2020, and as you all know, we worked diligently throughout the past year to develop a 2020 to 2025 statewide strategic plan. We've talked about it at length and convened several planning sessions, but we're at the point now where it's about execution. So Deanna Townsend-Smith is going to provide an update that basically looks at, review some of our progress here to date, some of the activities we've been engaged in, discuss some needed revision, and then talk about some next steps for the future. And so without further ado, Deanna.
Good morning, Chair Davis, Vice Chair Duncan, respective members of the board. Happy New Year to each of you. Today I stand before you to provide a brief strategic plan progress update, as we have committed to providing consistent updates on our progress over time. So specifically, the purpose of the presentation today is to review our process, discuss any needed revisions, outline our next steps, and leave some time for questions at the end. I am excited because last year I had the opportunity to participate in a LEAP fellowship through NASB. I got the opportunity to participate individually. However, now our entire strategic planning committee has the opportunity to participate in that work with other state boards around the state who are leading in equity work. And so what we are hoping is that as we continue our work over the next 9 months, we will have the benefit of interacting with these state boards of education, other state boards of education, and gleaning some best practices that we can incorporate into our work here in our state. And of course, strategic plan committee members chime in as I am going through this presentation at any time. One thing that we have also done with our strategic planning work, because we're not going to be able to do this without funding, is that we began to seek philanthropic funding to fund some of our efforts. So we, as Chair Davis outlined last month, we were successful in securing upwards of $92,000 to begin some of this work, and we have had other partners approach us to support us as we begin our work moving forward. And so now we have to continue the work of seeking out these grant opportunities and applying for those for those people who have sought us out to encourage us to apply. Earlier in the process, you requested a document to map out how our strategic plan linked to those other approved plans that we have, such as ESSA, et cetera. We have that document. It is complete. And you've had the opportunity to review that, and we'll continue to.
A participant has left the conference.
We will continue to develop that document as we move forward. And then the last thing that we're beginning to do or continuing to do are our convening opportunities. So last month, I believe it was, I had the opportunity through an invite through Dr. Emery's group to meet with the regional case managers on our strategic plans so that they can support us in their work. But what we're also going to begin to do is have larger convenings through a partnership that we have that will help us with convenings across the state. And then hopefully as board members continue to meet in their regions, you can begin to deliver messages about the strategic plan and its impact at the local level. Any questions so far? So we had some proposed revisions that we haven't formally adopted. At our call to action at our November planning and work session, we had Dr. Lynn Harvey's group and No Kid Hungry present some metrics and propose some action items for us to adopt in our strategic plan. As a committee, we have discussed these and we don't see them to be problematic. So hopefully tomorrow when you take action, you will also take action to incorporate these metrics on innovative school breakfast and school meals into our strategic plan as a full board, because they all make sense. We know that well-fed children achieve more. It makes sense. We need to do this work. So I encourage you to adopt these proposed revisions. Our next steps include dashboard development, working internally with the agency on how we can make this happen, and then having conversations with other boards of ed across the nation to determine how they are truly tracking their metrics in their strategic plan. This is going to be important. We haven't done a really good job of this in the past, and so this is a push that we plan to have a full update for you in the coming months. Up next, even though it seems soon and we're just now beginning 2020, the next planning and work session is right around the corner. We had a call to action at our November planning and work session. as we've looked at the West Ed report and other things, and what we heard from our call to action, is that partnerships are important. So our theme for our next planning and work session will be around partnerships, because without partnerships, we will not be successful. Those are the updates about the strategic plan and our progress to date. Are there questions, concerns, comments from anyone at the table at this time?
This is James, and I just wanted to let you all know that was not me who left the conference.
That concludes my report, Mr. Ford.
All right, Mr. Chair, if there aren't any other questions, that's our update from the Strategic Planning Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Ford, and that'll be on our items for action tomorrow. I'll now ask for a motion to go into closed session, which will also include a working lunch. We'll return out of closed session at approximately 1:30 this afternoon.
I move that the State Board of Education go into closed session to consult with our attorneys to discuss personnel matters, information that is privileged and confidential pursuant to 09 NCAC 06B.0103, confidentiality of solicitation documents, and 09 NCAC 06B.0309, evaluation, and other attorney-client privilege matters, including Hope County versus State of North Carolina and North Carolina State Board of Education, Demoninsky versus the State Board of Education and Pitt County Board of Education, Amplify Education, Inc. versus North Carolina Department of Public Instruction and iStation, Candy Killian Wood versus North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, MB versus Wake County Schools and North Carolina Department of Instruction, and U.S. Educational Technology Purchasing Alliance versus State Board of Education.
Motion by Mr. Duncan to go into closed session. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hall. Dr. Townsend Smith.
Mr. Buxton?
Yes.
Dr. Oxendine?
Yes.
Ms. Camden?
Yes.
Mr. Keenan? Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Ms. White?
Yes.
Mr. Chastain?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Vice Chair Duncan?
Yes.
Chair Davis?
Yes. Okay, we are in closed session. Let's convene in the conference room at 11:30, and we anticipate being back out at 1:30.